Climate activists will hold a protest later this week in Dewey Square near South Station. The group Extinction Rebellion wants public agencies to be more explicit about the dangers posed by climate change and to speed up actions to reduce harm. To tell us what's planned is a volunteer with the group, Charles Brody. Thank you very much for being with us, Charles.
Thank you.
Charles, first, tell me about your own growing interest in climate change. How did this get started for you?
My interest in climate change came out of my prior work in the union. I was a shop steward for many years, and I've been involved in union issues not only in a larger sense, but in individual cases where I'd be defending someone or aiding someone within the workplace environment. When I retired from the hotel, I very, very much wanted to continue that sort of thing, but I didn't know which way I wanted to go. I went through a couple of political organizations until I reached a point where my reading led me to believe that there was quite a bit I needed to look into in terms of the environment. Once I became involved in that, talking to people as well as researching, it struck me that we have a serious problem. The more I read, the more amazed I was at what I did not know. And the more I explored this with people, the more I became interested in possibly being able to do something about it. I think it's an obligation.
When you talk about reading about climate change, anything stands out as something that really disturbed you?
I would say The Uninhabitable Earth, a book, disturbed me quite a bit. I think that so much of the writing that's being done now, particularly by Chris Hedges and other people, is so very much to point that we do all need to take time when we can find it to research this for ourselves, because unfortunately the information is not being provided to us by the news organizations as it should be. People are simply painfully unaware of the actual dangers that the human race is approaching.
Talk about the area where this protest is going to happen. This is going to be in Dewey Square. It's near South Station, but it's just across Fort Point Channel from the Seaport District.
Right. The Seaport District is fated to go underwater, and that's going to happen before the end of the century. There is probably little or nothing we can do about it. We can assume that water levels are going to reach a given point. We can build defenses against it, but the actual predictability of the rise of the waters is dependent on far too many factors for the engineers to make a well-educated guess as to this is what needs to be done and this is all that needs to be done, because there will probably never be enough done.
Okay. When you say not enough done, what should be done? What do you think?
What should be done is that the people in this country should be made aware by the leadership in this country on both the federal and the state level of the state of the climate on this planet. The state of the climate on this planet has been deteriorating. Many people have heard the phrases 1 degree centigrade or 1.5 degrees centigrade or 2 degrees centigrade occasionally on the national news.
It doesn't sound very dramatic, does it?
No, it doesn't. But let's take 1750. There was nothing going on. There was no smoke. In 1750, the Earth had a given temperature. We use that as a reference point, and we use centigrade degrees. We are now 1.1 degrees warmer all over on the planet as an average than we were in, say, 1750, before there was any fossil fuel use. The point is further that 1.5, and this is very, very hard for people to understand, just 1.5 degrees centigrade above the temperature in 750 is going to lead to drastic climactic events. We already see the beginnings of them. I mean, 300 tornadoes in 2 weeks in the American Southwest is unheard of, but we've had them. And then you hear about events in Malaysia or in the Pacific and so many other places on Earth. Again, what is not happening is more frightening than what is happening. At this level, we can maintain. But without public knowledge as to what might happen, we're going to be in very great trouble in the future, because it will be the people who are going to need to be the ones who tell the government that something must be done about it.
This has been the news. We're talking with Charles Brody from Extinction Rebellion. Charles, I want to go back to your past work as a union leader, because one of the things I'm sure you're used to is that, when you're representing people or if you're involved in negotiations, you're trying to get something and there are people on the other side, they don't want to give that to you. They want to make it as hard as they can sometimes to get what you need. How does that fit in with what you're doing right now?
Well, it's very similar. The wages and benefits in this country have essentially stagnated. It's possible to say they've stagnated or remained the same since approximately the mid-70s. That's not true. The wealth that the labor creates in this country hasn't stagnated. It's been stolen from labor. It's been appropriated by corporate interests. It's their wealth now. We don't get it. There's a big difference, to my mind, in arguing, do these guys deserve a raise as opposed to what have you done with the money you've taken with them from 1976 on, let's say. That was usually my position. It wasn't always popular.
Well, here I imagine what you're trying to do is change the response of government. The more local you get, I guess, the more responsive things are. But let's say between the city and the state, is there something you want to change there about what they're doing right now?
Yeah, the main change we want to look at is people. People are the essential thing, the welfare of people. This generation, the generation to come, and the generation beyond that. It may or may not be possible to save everything, but we can still save some things. The physics teaches us that. The more you get into the complexities actually of what is happening on Earth, the more you get to understand that we can make some progress. We can't make all the progress we'd want to, but if we don't start doing something quickly and effectively, we're going to reach a point that we don't want to.
I want to ask you about the recent protest in Boston and many other cities around the world, the climate strike. A lot of it was teenagers, pretty good-sized crowd in City Hall Plaza, but I also see nationwide, at least, some people not taking this that seriously. But how did you feel about it?
Well, it was great. I was down at City Hall for the occasion. It was great to see the kids out there. It was great to listen to them. They're incredibly sincere people. They can be incredibly sincere, and they're good messengers. It is true that you did have a lot of people who got the day off, and so because they went where everyone else was going. That's human nature. Nevertheless, I thought it was a positive thing, and I think beyond the fact that it was just an excuse, perhaps for some people, to say I did it, I think it's the sort of thing where people could take that experience and make it something that will propel them to do more.
Now, speaking of doing more, this is Extinction Rebellion you're with.
Yes.
So maybe you're going to be pushing the envelope even farther. What do you see yourself doing?
Well, Extinction Rebellion, it's not a very snappy phrase. It sounds like it was thought up by a committee. As a matter of fact, it was. It took us a long time to come up with a name for the organization. Extinction is what we fear most, and that would be extinction for the human race. And things could indeed get that serious, unless something is done. That's essential. Rebellion is exactly what we feel is necessary. It's not extinction protest. It is Extinction Rebellion. We intend to take nonviolent civil disobedience action whenever and wherever we can to make people aware of the fact that they do not have sufficient information to make informed decisions about factors that are essential to their lives and the lives of their children.
Now, we should mention also that even though certain members of this organization plan civil disobedience, you're also asking for people to, I guess, to sort of join the event, but not necessarily go that far. How else can people sort of show up and display their support?
Well, not everyone wants to be arrested. There are people who definitively should not be arrested. No one requires anyone in our organization to be arrested. As a matter of fact, my opinion and a lot of other opinions within the organization would have it that people who are not arrested probably do as much or more good than the people who are arrested. Being arrested in the end, is it's good camera. People can see people being arrested voluntarily. That's wonderful. But the people who are out there and who are still out there after the others have left and who are still talking to people who have witnessed this are just as important.
And, I'm sure that whenever there's civil disobedience, someone's going to say, well, they held up traffic, or there could have been an ambulance that needed to get through. What do you say when people say things like that?
Well, ambulances we let through. We make a policy of making certain we do not interrupt any emergency vehicle any longer than we have to. In terms of the traffic delays, that's too damn bad.
We should mention that if people want some more details about what's planned, we should get a little bit more about the time and the place again.
That would be 3:30 this coming Friday, Dewey Square.
Thank you very much for being with us. Charles Brody from Extinction Rebellion.